in this country be protected by law from discrimination and violence based on sexual orientation and gender identity?
Thank you very much indeed. The question, when will LGBT people in this country be protected by law from discrimination and violence based on sexual orientation and gender identity? The legal ban on homosexual sex was overturned in 2018, but it remains on the statute books and is wending its way, I think, towards the Privy Council, the English legal body, or the British legal body that is the highest court of appeal. That will take some years. Lawrence Arjoon, the question about protection by law.
Can you repeat the question?
Please. When will LGBT people in this country be protected by law from discrimination and violence based on sexual orientation and gender identity?
That will happen when we start respecting everybody in Trinidad and Tobago as people, as human beings. Because coming back to my previous point about the society that we live in, and that post-colonial society that we live in, we've been conditioned to believe that there's us and the thems, and some are better, we may be better than others. LGBT plus people are just like everybody else, and the fact that we are appealing a ruling in the Privy Council that says that people in the country should have rights to live their lives free from hurt and harm once they're not hurting and harming everyone is a bit confusing to me. That tells me that we don't respect the people we have in the country. But it comes back to meaningful inclusion. Because if you had the voices of the LGBT and the indigenous populations and everybody else taken into consideration when we, in the parliament level, actually, you know what? The Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is designed to be the representative voice of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We need to get that back to being that. It's not there. We've heard it here. We've heard the conversations that we have on the political platforms. One, every single human being in Trinidad and Tobago who is living in Trinidad and Tobago deserves to have their human rights upheld. Dr. Eric Williams said that in a much more eloquent way.
So why is it then, forgive me, just to drag it back to this question about protection by law from discrimination and violence, why is it that that protection does not exist?
Firstly, we didn't create those laws. We inherited those laws from the powers that be before us.
You have had an opportunity over the decades to change
Changing the laws comes back to the will, the political will to do so.
Okay.
Now we've
that
not had any political will to change that law because we are trying to appease everyone in society by maintaining the status quo.
Okay. I want to put the point there because you've thrown it towards the politicians. Let me put the point, first of all, to Anita Haynes MP from the opposition UNC. Where is the political will? Why does it not exist?
So when you discuss political will and you discuss advocacy and where things come from, the driving force has to be from the people of the country. Let me wait one second. Yes. And so where it comes to the answer to the first question, how are we not moving from tribal politics? To the question, to what you raised, why aren't we discussing policies coming from? Because we, and Roger said at the beginning, there's this disconnect between us, right? So we speak about what we want to speak about, and then people say that we fed up with all of them. And so let's all take, if this is the direction we want to go in, well, let us organize ourselves and advocate in such a way so that your politicians have to respond to you. And once we get there, you are going to start to see the changes that you want. I assure you, once you stop divorcing yourself from the system and saying that you are not part of the system and the system is happening to you, instead of saying, I can do something, I can hold my member, I could want to know who my member of parliament is, right? I can then hold that person to account. And then we must respond to your change. We must respond to your voice.
But could it be, in fact, and let me play devil's advocate for a moment, could it be that the political will doesn't exist because the public is divided on this issue and you are afraid of alienating people who vote for you?
So in a representative democracy, you would agree that the majority will rule, right? But again, it comes from understanding the strength of your voice. And so it isn't a question of whether or not we are divided because so we're all spinning around, right? If that is the will of the people, if that is what the desired space we want to see the country go into, then it is a question of advocating for it and using the system to the advantage to represent the will of the people. That is what we have to do.
Okay, Anita, thank you very much. Stuart Young, Minister for Energy. Again, the question, when will LGBT plus people in this country be protected by law from discrimination and violence based on sexual orientation and gender identity? That protection does not currently exist.
So I have sat in and I've listened very carefully to your repeat of the question. And I would love to know exactly in what area there is not protection for everybody. Applying the current law, it is a crime for anybody to exact physical violence on anybody. So that's the first thing I was a little confused by. But recently within our society, everyone is allowed to express their views, to express their practices. That is protected by the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. There are some archaic laws, as I understand it. For example, the Immigration Act is one. That case that you've mentioned, going to the Privy Council, is not about a lack of protection for anyone and their practices, etc. I believe it is an attack on an archaic law that exists, and it may very well be the immigration law. I'm not 100% familiar with it. But if there are instances, the next thing that crossed my mind as well is we have the Equal Opportunities Commission, we have the Equal Opportunities legislation, and that is a body that was formulated by legislation to protect exactly that against any and all discrimination, any and all sexual harassment and these types of things. So if there's specific legislation that you believe needs to be modeled and brought, then I agree with Anita. Bring it forward. There are routes and methodologies to do that, and it will be looked at. Nothing is shut down. But I sat here with some discomfort trying to figure out, but where exactly is it that it is not protected? Because it is wrong under the Equal Opportunities Act to discriminate against people. It is wrong
of their sexuality or their gender identity.
Well, and that,
No, you're wrong.
whether that does cover the sexuality
No,
and the gender.
no.
And gender identity is really a new concept that you see now throughout the world, right? In fairness to that. So if it is something that needs to be looked at, then put it forward to the legislators and let it be looked at.
Thank you very much. Marlene.
I think, quite frankly, our we're being a little disingenuous because these are conversations that we don't have in the national space. By raising an issue when it is an issue that is discussed behind closed doors and little pockets, etc., etc. Because I think many of the persons in the audience, and I would dare say the majority of people in Trinidad and Tobago, do not have conversations around LGBTQ rights, human rights, because it is an inalienable right. And I think all of these issues surrounding human rights really aren't discussed in open spaces and broadly enough for them to actually go to the point of being implemented and for policies to change in Trinidad and Tobago. I think personally that we're being a little disingenuous this evening because it's not issues that we discuss openly in Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much.
Equal Opportunities Act specifically excludes protection against discrimination based on sexual orientation.
Yes.
That needs to be changed. There's been a lot of lobbying going on around that. I just want to go back to what Dr. Eric Williams said about democracy. Democracy means the recognition of others and the equality of all in the eyes of the law. Democracy means the responsibility of the government and citizens, the protection of the citizens from the exercise of arbitrary power, and the violation of human freedoms and individual rights. Policy and practice align through education and through all sorts of other things. We need the Equal Opportunities Act to be amended. And then we need to have the right conversations, like Dr. Attzs said, about these real issues, but bringing the people who are advocating on the outside inside of the spaces.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I am sorry. If we could try and just hold it to when we go to the audience. I'd like to hear the question, if I could, about what you've learned tonight.
Well, my brother is in fact married to a man, and he lives in Europe, in Paris, with his husband. And he does not want to travel to Trinidad and Tobago because he does not think it's safe. He also doesn't want to relocate here because he does not think it's safe. So as a person with a family member that's afraid to come here, and knowing that him coming here would be beneficial to this economy, that just saddens me.
Thank you very much.